Hello and welcome to Handmade Chelsea Online for another exhibitor live session. I'm Alice and I'm part of the Handmade in Britain team, and we are now joined by Helen Chatterton, who is a fashion and textiler, and we're going to be talking with her about her old maps, silks and tweeds. So this is Helen's textile journey. Now do remember that this is an interactive event, so please do click on the chat box below and do open that up and do answer and ask, I should say, questions directed to Helen. I popped her link in there, so do pop and have a look at her collection or join us for the next around about 15 minutes as we go through and hear about her fascination of old maps and her inspiration again for her unique silk scarves as we see her new collection and have a look around her studio. So Helen, it's over to you. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Alice, and thanks very much, Alice, and thanks to all the Handmade team for putting this on, because we can't do the show this afternoon. I'm mainly going to talk about my maps. I've got two collections of work. I do Harris Tweed with Velvets and Liberties, and then I do my City on Cloth collection. So I'm going to talk about the maps, how I got to do them, the cities I've done, and briefly how I do them, and then I'll show you a few tweed scarves from my tweed collection. The map collection first came about as Handmade in Britain were doing a show in London, a spring show at the Oxo Galleries. Now, I'd done a few of Handmade in Britain's Chelsea shows and a couple of Bath shows, and I was really desperate to do this show. So I applied with my tweed scarves with Velvet and Liberties, and the application was rejected. It came back and it had to be a London theme. So I looked away and I think I probably resubmitted them thinking, well, Liberties London. Came back again, no, rejected. Had a conversation with Piyush and he said, no, it's got to be London. So I went away and thought, what can I do with London? Now, we've got loads of books in our house and we have loads and loads of maps. So I found an old map book that we used to use when we first got married, and it was a street atlas of London. And we used to use it for flat hunting because we couldn't afford a proper A to Z. We had this old thing, and it was from 1959. We used to go do lots of walking in London as well. So I had this, and when you look inside, the colours are absolutely beautiful. And I did think, well, that will lend itself to textiles. So I went back and spoke to Piyush, and he said, well, yes, let's do something with this. So I found some digital printers and then got some map fabric printed up onto cotton lawn. And when I think back about how I did it then, it was such a big learning curve. I think I cut bits out and sellotaped them and took them to the printers, but they did end up producing some really, really nice fabric. But we couldn't use this map book, this map book, because it was from 1959. And copyright something has to be 70 years old, the copyright. We found out where this map book was from. My husband, who's a lawyer, rang the company, we traced them back, and it turns out that the original map book is produced by is now owned by News International. So we thought, well, we're not going to mess with them. So funnily enough, we had a 1929 version, which is the one that I used for the scarves. The print came back, and this is what it looked like. And it was nice, and I backed it with linen. I think I made about 50 of them. I think we've got a couple left. So I took them to the Oxo Galleries, and they did sell quite well. And I got a commission from the British Museum for that, with cotton with tweed on the back, and then a commission from an Inverness gallery. So those are the first ones, and the British Museum ones I don't think did amazingly. So I was still doing all my tweed and Liberty and tweed and velvet at that time as well. But I really enjoyed the maps and I enjoyed finding them. So I was desperate to carry on. Now, in the original map book, which is now cut up to my husband's horror, there was this gem of a map, an absolute, and such a beautiful map. So I had that printed onto silk, and I used to make some very long, thin silks that did very, very, very well at Chelsea Town Hall. They were absolutely lovely. In fact, one woman even said, "Can I?" She bought two, and she said, "Can I wear them at once?" Well, who are we to argue? But they were really good sellers. So then, excuse me, I'll just look at my notes. In 2013, I changed printers for some reason, I can't remember why. And I started to think about map squares, you know, the traditional silk map squares. And at this stage, I will say that it's very important to me that I get these scarves printed in the UK. So I went to RA Smart in Macclesfield, and I have to say they have been amazing. They really mollycoddled me with borders and things like that. So I found a pictorial map, which that's a pictorial map, and they're the best. They're my favourite maps. They're very difficult to get hold of, but we found this map. Here we are. Now, you may recognise it. If you know my work, you may recognise this, the actual map there. That's the Victorian map that I used for the large city on cloth squares that are on Handmade's website. It was the big silk squares. The silk printers advised me to go as large as I could with those scarves. So I did. They're 110 by 110, they're 130 pounds. And I really enjoyed doing those. I did the first one in pink, and I also got cotton lawn printed of that. So I combined that with some tweeds, and they sold quite well as well. So I enjoyed just doing the silk and working with RA Smart. So I started to look at other cities, and coincidentally, Piyush had another show in the south of France called Coat something, and he asked me to make some French maps that would be sold. So I found, I think it was a Baedeker's book, and got the maps, and I did Nice, Avignon, Aix, Marseille, Lyon and Arles. And Nice and Lyon are still really, really popular. So I enjoyed doing those, and they sold quite well. Then I started to add to the range. I found Delhi, Berlin, New York, Milan and Rome. And those were all quite successful and still are successful. In 2014, I did the London map in blue, and then in red. They're all on the Handmade online site. And the red was actually featured in the New York Times, which led to quite a few orders. You do have to think when you're doing maps about politics, colonial history. When I was doing Delhi, Hong Kong and Berlin, and I did inquire about this with people who know a lot better about it than I do. I was taking them to trade shows, and I must say, they're quite dear for trade to buy, but I got very good commissions from the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford. They commissioned 2 maps and lots of lavender bags. The Booth's Poverty map and the Suffragette maps, which I did for the Museum of London, I didn't really have to change the colours on them, but they all sold. And I did one from the original map book for Kew Gardens, and I did ties and bow ties. And I've also done commissions for Winchester, Cambridge and shops in Conway. So if someone commissions one for a shop, then no one else has them. They're not necessarily very good for individual commissions because of the price. I do ask shops to order about 4 or 5 of them at least. So I get lots of people inquiring at trade shows, people like the Opera House, and you buy the map, you do all the work, and then when they find out how much it is, then they sort of go away again. Excuse me, I'll have to look at my maps. So the process I use is to first of all find the maps. We've actually got quite a lot here. I go on eBay, I go on online. The criteria for what makes a good map scarf for me is it's got to have a river. It's got to have river, sea. It's got to have an interesting grid system, or an interesting street structure, or pictorial ideally, but you can't find them. And things like the Hong Kong map, you can actually see the waves on that and there, and that's quite interesting. So I scan the map and then put it onto Photoshop, and then I do the artwork. And I can't tell you what a massive learning curve the Photoshop and doing the artwork has been. It is, I have to say, at one point I was, I think I was doing the French maps. I had a Photoshop for Dummies book, which I ended up lobbing at the piano. It was in tears. It was awful. The latest map scarf I've done is Cape Town, which was a slight commission for a very good friend because I wanted to treat her one for her birthday. So the original map is here. And because Photoshop's so marvellous, this Cape Town map had a big insert of Port Elizabeth, which I didn't want. So I've managed to take that out and then replace it with the sea, so I really like that one. And when I found the Cape Town map, I think I saw it online and I thought that's really interesting, and found that it was from a huge big atlas of maps, and thought, well, where can we get that? So went on eBay and found the whole map book for sale for £30. So we ended up getting my son's fiance to go down and pick it up, which was a bit dodgy because she was a young girl on her own going to someone's house in Devon to pick up this map book, but it worked out fine. And it's led to some incredible maps. In that book, there are some beautiful maps that I can take from there. There's Prague, Washington, loads of South American places. I think Melbourne. Yeah, so there's lots more to come. Some people, when they're choosing a map scarf, if I'm at Chelsea Town Hall or Handmade Oxford, so this is retail shows, not trade, some people go on the colour. And we had one lady who said, oh, that pink's absolutely gorgeous. I've never been to Liverpool, but I'm having that scarf. Some people like to see the streets, the exact streets, and then they'll say, oh, my grandmother lived there. Oh, I think I'll have that. You do get different types of customer. And one time, my daughter and I searched through 100 lavender bags at Chelsea Town Hall to see if we could find Lamb's Conduit Street, and we couldn't. And people do love maps. They really do. So if there's any that people would like to see, please go on the chat and let me know. The photography is very tricky for map scarves because they're so huge. I can manage the lifestyle photographs now. I had some fantastic models last time, some very good friends. But the flat photographs, which you will see on Handmade Online, I get Yeshan Venema to do them, and that's through Handmade in Britain. He's absolutely amazing. So I do other products from the map scarves. I do lavender bags. I went to pick up a load of the scarves from the factory, and they asked if I wanted the spare silk that was left over. They'd obviously had some seconds or some overprints, and I said, yes, please. So I took them away and thought, well, I already made lavender bags out of Liberty and Tweed, and thought, well, these lend themselves very nicely because you can cut out the faulty bits. So I started doing City on Cloth lavender bags. I've got a few here. They've just gone on Handmade Online. You can get 3 for £21. So they've been so popular with trade. I make thousands of them. I did 500 for a very big perfume place in the south of France. They're filled with Yorkshire lavender, which didn't bother the French perfume people, thankfully. And they're so popular that now I've started to have, when I have some maps done, I've started to have the prints, the silk printed down the side. They really have been very, very popular. And people often ask me if I grow my own lavender, but I buy it in 15-kilogram boxes. So no, our garden isn't that big. So future projects for the maps, well, I'm going to do some more cities, and I'm doing some notebooks, which will be on Handmade Online at the end of November. There's a company who make notebooks sustainably using up old fabric. So they'll be on, I can't remember which cities we've got, but we've got some good ones, and they'll be about £18. And then projects for the future, I'd like to do some long ones in wool and cashmere, perhaps. My other collection, as most of you will know, is Tweed, which I started, that's what I started my business with. I did cushions, and then the business evolved to doing scarves. I started doing scarves with Tweed because I used to go on holiday to Scotland, and I sourced lots and lots of fantastic Tweed. And then that was all from the borders. And then I started with Harris Tweed, and my husband said, no, that's too itchy, that'll never catch on. But they are actually my best sellers. I think there's Tweed and Velvet, and then Tweed and Skinny. This is one from the newest collection, which I really love this one. I think that's £72. It's lined with silk velvet. And then here is a skinny scarf, and that's lined with Strawberry Thief. So I do 2 new ranges of tweed and velvet and skinny scarves each year to take to the trade shows. And there's quite a lot on Handmade Online, and I've just found a new velvet supplier who's got 126 velvets, and I've just found a new tweed supplier. So I think next year, hopefully, there'll be some exciting new fabrics and some exciting new maps. So if anyone's got any questions.
Gosh, thank you, Helen. You've kind of gone through all the collections that you've got then from your maps to to the velvet that look very plush actually. Can we have another look at it? Your
Which,
beautiful, so your new one, that light blue and velvet is beautiful. Look at
yeah,
that.
this has been really
The
popular.
the sheen on there. We've actually just had a question pop in just as we're here. Someone's asked, would you ever plan to do any cushions?
Never. I used to do cushions. No, that's what I started off doing. No. And do you know what finished me off? Partly it was taking them to shows, and you'd have a car boot full of cushion pads, and you can get I stopped doing them. So no.
Well, we've had a really good question as well. What do you think is the hardest map for you to do? What's been the most challenging?
Oh, that's not a hard question, actually. Edinburgh was so hard. I honestly don't know why. And I've done 4 Edinburgh map scarves. It was really hard. I think because there isn't much water. You've got that mound. You've got the mound and the castle. There's not. I don't think there's much contrast. And maybe all the maps are. I have got some new Edinburgh maps. Edinburgh was really tricky. So I'm going to do some new Edinburgh ones.
So if we talk about kind of the most challenging, what's been your best one to do yet?
I think my favourite one is the New York one. That was really satisfying because I changed the colours. The colours were completely changed in that one. I think, yeah, and then I quite like the Oxford one as well because it's Oxford blue. So I like them all. I really enjoy doing the artwork now that I've got a new. Now that I've got a new updated Photoshop. It should be easier.
I'm going to have to start coming to you, to ask for Photoshop tips. It sounds like.
Oh no.
Okay, so when you found a map and from the different eras. I mean, do you always change the colours? What's a good colourway for you to use and to print, or is there no right colour combination?
It depends on the map. Occasionally, I will always change them. I will always change something because I think you'd just be printing someone else's work, really. So I do change something. I always start off with the rivers and the sea, so you work from the blues. Really, and I end up doing about 4 versions, and I'll say to Mark, just come and look at this, what do you think? And he'll go, not keen on that one. And I say, you've got to envisage it on silk satin because it's a whole different thing than just flat paper. So yeah, I do always change the colours. Sometimes, I mean, you should see the drafts on my computer. Some of them are hideous. I do have to delete them. But
no, I love it. I love it. And someone's actually just asked a question which I was going to ask myself. So thank you. I mean, what is? I suppose there's 2 questions. What do you feel is your bestseller? But then also, which item is your favourite from the collection?
Oh, that is a really tricky one. The best sellers are the London maps, probably. This one is a very good seller, and Paris is a very good seller. I'm going to do a new Paris, actually. Yeah, it depends. So the London maps are probably the best. Liverpool was an incredibly good seller. I've sold loads of those through the Blue Coat Display Centre in Liverpool. So and then they're sold out. So I'm not going to reissue those. I'm going to do new Liverpool. Those are my lockdown projects. So yeah, I really enjoy doing the maps, and I love getting them back from the factory.
Is it a little bit like Christmas? It kind of arrives and you kind of see all your hard work kind of encapsulated.
And also, and when I see all that hemming, I think, no way I've had to do all that hemming.
So talking about kind of the pieces that go into it. I mean, how did you actually start doing scarves? Why was it scarves? Because you spoke about earlier about you started off doing your Harris Tweed scarves. What was the inspiration, and what kind of led to what you do today?
Partly because I love scarves. I've got cupboards of scarves, and I buy a lot of other people's scarves as well. And anyone can wear a scarf. I think that was the appeal. Anyone can wear a scarf. It doesn't matter what size you are, how tall you are. Anyone, or men can wear them and women can wear them. And I do like making things for men as well. So yeah, I think it was just I wouldn't make anything that I didn't use myself. Like I don't particularly wear tweedy type hats, so I wouldn't get into making hats. And I would only make things that I can do well as well. It's got to be, I've got to be able to make it really well. So, and if I wouldn't use it, then, and also you've got to think of what other people do better. There are people making Harris Tweed bags. I wouldn't particularly use a Harris Tweed bag because I wouldn't. And other people make them beautifully. So I think, well, yeah.
If they've got it
keep it simple, I think. Stick to what you can do properly.
So kind of keeping it simple, I mean, how do many people wear your scarves? Do they kind of go, we've had someone who go, would it be over the shoulder? Would it be around? Do you have a special technique?
No, I don't. We've actually got a blog post, I think, on our website about it. Hester does my website and my Instagram. Yeah, I think we've got a blog post. Well, anyway, really. They're not long. They're not particularly long. So you don't do that thing where you put it in half and then put it through. You can do. But I did a lot of market research, and these are about 150 centimetres long, and you wouldn't want one you wouldn't want one longer, it'd be too bulky. There's a very nifty way of wearing the skinny scarves, and it's called the Georgina von Etzdorf knot, which I can actually type out. And if anyone, do you know what, I'll type out how you wear it, and I'll put it on my chat room. And people can screenshot it or do whatever, because that's a really nice way of wearing it. It's a nifty little knot that looks good. So I'll type that out after we've finished.
So we were speaking earlier about what's hiding behind you, because we can see lots of material. So as you're in your studio, is that kind of like a go-to? Would you kind of look on your shelves and kind of think what goes with what?
Yeah, that's all my liberties. And well, that's the map, obviously, and then down the other side I've got all my tweeds, and I think I was going to do another talk about all the fabrics and pairing the fabrics, because these are all open shelves, so that I can sit when I'm sitting at the sewing machine between, I don't know, when I'm doing things. You do look at them, and you sort of look, your eyes do dart, and you think, oh, well, that would go with that. And when I get new liberties, which I do twice a year, and new tweeds, I do lay them out on the top of that shelf there, and so you can see them, and you think, oh, that might go with that, that might go with that. So yeah, that's quite a long, drawn out process actually doing that. So that's all the liberties there.
Actually, we're coming near the end of our time, but I do have a question from myself, if I may. So obviously you're working from your home studio now. Do you listen to anything, or do you watch anything that keeps you going while making all those lavender bags?
Yes, I put Spotify on. I listen to all kinds of things, and I listen to podcasts. Yeah, and I'll send you a message about some of the podcasts, Alice. But yes, I listen to podcasts when I'm pressing and when I'm doing things that aren't noisy, and when I'm at the sewing machine, you can't listen to the spoken word, so I listen to loads and loads of music. So sort of lots of jazz, stuff like that. So there is usually something on in the workroom.
We've had a cheeky message from someone who says that we should admit to watching terrible TV.
Yeah. And terrible podcasts.
I think it goes hand in hand. One of just the final question, if we can end on, if we can. You've got a beautiful scarf. Which scarf are you wearing, and how are you
this
wearing
is Oxford.
it?
This is Oxford, yeah. Yeah, I just twisted it round and then tied it at the back. This is Oxford, which I did for Handmade's Oxford show in the town hall. And this is nearly sold out, actually. It's been a really popular one.
It's really nice, actually, to hear. I mean, that a lot of the shows that Handmade in Britain have done, you've always made something new and for each other. It actually sounds like Piyush is a bit of a tyrant.
No, he's not. I have to say, if it hadn't been for Piyush, I wouldn't be doing the map scarves, and I wouldn't have kept on doing them. He's been really, really supportive of the maps. And I mean, Handmade in Britain are the only retail shows I do anyway. So I will probably recolour a new one for Handmade Oxford in June, which hopefully will go ahead. So if anyone wants to tell me what colours they'd like to see on the Oxford scarf.
Well, they should definitely go over to your live chat then and start asking you. Will you be available for live chat after?
I'll go on the live
talk?
chat now. I'll have to take me a few minutes to turn my computer on, but yeah, I will go on it.
No worries. Well, first of all, thank you so much for your time this afternoon, Helen. It's been so nice to kind of get to know the collection better and to learn more about your maps and your tweed scarves.
Thanks, Alice.
Thank you. That's been great.
Thank you very much.
No, that's
thanks. Thank you. Bye.
I'm still going, but we can say goodbye in a minute. So on that note, you can go and see Helen over in live chat. So do drop her a message, and then as soon as she goes in, she can leave you one in return. And then you can also go to interact.handmadeinbritain.co.uk and visit Helen's shop. I've popped her link in chat, so don't leave without clicking on that first. And once again, Helen, thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Alice. Thanks for setting it up. Thanks a lot. Bye.
That's okay. We'll see everyone later. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Bye.